Okay. Let's define ultra processed food.
Really, that's where the issue comes in.
That's right.
Is that that's the crux of it. We still haven't been able to agree upon, we as in,
society.
Yes. And the individuals that came up with the NOVA classification, they have their own sort of definition. Policymakers have their own definition. Those in nutritional epidemiological research, maybe err on the other end of the spectrum of the definition. So to put a law into action that is essentially, again, going to ban these food products from menus, if we don't know exactly what they are and we can't agree upon what the certain criteria are that constitutes processed or not processed, or again, it's because it's this huge spectrum of things and they're not all created equal. It's very hard to agree. So I mentioned the NOVA classification. That's what's currently being used. And this entire concept of ultra processed foods comes from this system by a Brazilian researcher. Again, he put this into motion, and that's how it's in most of our, our vernacular at this point. So there are 4 categories: group 1, group 2, group 3, and 4. 1 is unprocessed or minimally processed foods, fruits, vegetables, plain yogurt, fresh meats. Group 2 is processed culinary ingredients. So these are the things you cook with: oil, butter, sugar, salt. 3, these are just processed foods. And you would think of these as simple industrial products made by adding ingredients from the second group to the first group. So these are canned vegetables, certain types of cheeses, freshly made or unpackaged bread. And so you think about the thing, salt, sugar, things to preserve these foods longer, kick those foods down a level, so to speak. The 4th group is the ultra processed foods. This is the one everyone is talking about and is scared of at this point. They're not defined as modified foods, but completely an industrial formulation. So they usually have 5 or more ingredients. They have components that are extracted from foods like high fructose corn syrup, protein isolates, or they're made in labs with cosmetic additives. And this is where everybody gets up in arms about the colors, the flavors, dyes, the emulsifiers, which make them really enjoyable. So soft drinks, packaged snacks, instant noodles, frozen meals, the whole 9 yards, mass-produced cereals, mass-produced breads, all of those types of foods.
Because, those first 3 are pretty standard, everyday things. I would imagine a processed food you could think of, the dinner mom made or grandma made would be considered a processed food by these definitions. And you said this is the NOVA scale?
It is. Okay. It is. And Carlos Monteiro, it's important to understand that this wasn't like a panel at the time, wasn't a panel of experts that came up with this. This was somebody who was trying to, put some sort of bumpers on the food, is it the nutrients? Is it the food processing? What are the different levels of food processing?
Yeah. Wrap his brain around it.
Yes, exactly. And so it was merely a hypothesis that has now been birthed into this huge thing.
Yeah. I wonder.
Yeah.
Carlos probably did not intend for it ever to get to the conversation that is at right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the ultra processed foods are the ones we're talking about, not those prior 3 really, even though we all know, like butter, there's a limit on how much you can reasonably eat, even though it's a culinary ingredient. It's the type 2, it's the air quotes safe thing. It's not supposed to be your whole diet.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get into the ultra processed, because that is why we're here. What is the problem with calling ultra processed foods less desirable?
So the issue is that in practice, it is still quite subjective. And those that will critique Monteiro's classification, the definition was described as much as a social one as it is one based on the specific ingredients. So, going even further into definitions, the California has actually defined it themselves in their new law, and theirs really just targets foods high in saturated fat, sodium, or sugar that also contain additives like artificial colors, sweeteners, and emulsifiers. And again, back to the whole definition thing. These authors didn't really, to actually answer one of your early questions, I don't even really think there was a uniform definition that they were answering to when looking at these studies and the foods that were being eaten. We all know at this point, if you've listened to this show, we've said that it's very difficult to really get a snapshot of what somebody's overall eating pattern is like. I mean, you can sort of get an idea with 24-hour recall and survey and those sort of things. But man, we know from tracking our food that you think you're 100% accurate, and there could be a day you just completely miss a meal that you entered, or you forget about the 24 pretzels you had at work, let alone people who are being surveyed and medical information is being looked at after the fact. The whole thing is just ripe with issues.